thousands at the Venetian Hotel in the conference billed as, quote, the world's largest and most influential gathering of Bitcoin professionals, investors, and thought leaders. Also on the list of speakers here, and it is a long one, you have Eric Trump and Don Jr. President Trump himself, you may remember, spoke at last year's conference in Nashville, and we actually brought that to you live right here on Live Now from Fox. So what exactly should we expect today as the conference does continue and we hear from J.D. Vance? Let's bring in Bryan, the founder of Dane and a crypto wealth manager. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today and discuss it all.
Good morning, Josh. How you doing?
Good morning. Doing great. And first off, I do want to ask you, because I want to go back to basics a little bit. We use terms like cryptocurrency and Bitcoin a lot now, a lot more than we have in years past. Can you break down for folks out there exactly what that is, what it's backed by, and really how it all works?
Yeah, and this is important to continuously go over because this is a new space, right? So when you talk about cryptocurrencies, really the important one to start with and to know about is Bitcoin, okay? Bitcoin is money and digital property. And to keep it really simple, Bitcoin is treated as property by the IRS, okay? And a couple neat things about Bitcoin is one, it's fixed supply. There are only 21 million units of Bitcoin. That is all there'll ever be. So you have something that is very rare. So now when you have this digital property, this investable asset, some other things that are unique to it are it trades 24/7, 365 around the world without the need for traditional banks and exchanges. And so it's a really unique investment product. And, you might say, what is it backed by? Well, when we look at the US dollar, okay, it used to be backed by gold, but we are no longer on the gold standard. So if you see a $100 bill and it says 100 on it, you're supposed to believe that it's worth 100. Bitcoin is backed by trust and the energy that miners use to verify the transactions that happen on the Bitcoin network.
I have to ask, because we know that President Donald Trump, since he took office, has had a lot to say about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. So how has the focus there on crypto and Bitcoin kind of changed from, let's say, the Biden administration to the Trump administration during his second term?
We've been a registered investment advisor specifically for crypto for 7 years. I can speak on this firsthand because we were in business the entire Biden administration and when Gary Gensler was running the SEC. Cryptocurrency and blockchain innovation was up against the wall. It was really hard to get anything done. And now under the Trump administration and its pro-crypto stance, the space is on a ramp and it's about to launch. And maybe why, right? You want to know what's happening, what's he doing? We've seen a stablecoin bill, but even more importantly, we are going to have Bitcoin as a strategic reserve for this country. And that's huge, okay? If Bitcoin's good enough for this country, it's good enough for all Americans to invest in. So there's a lot of favorable things happening with this administration.
And you're taking a live look, as I mentioned, via EarthCam. This is over Las Vegas as we wait for the sun to rise, and that committee, or I should say the actual event itself, is expected to begin here in just a matter of hours for the day. What is the significance of Vice President J.D. Vance speaking at this huge Bitcoin conference in Vegas? What do we expect to hear from him, and why Las Vegas?
There's a lot of conferences that go on in the United States, a lot of big ones. And it's not every conference that you hear someone from the presidency is attending a conference. So having Vice President J.D. Vance at this conference shows that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are very important to this administration. And I think when he takes stage, he's going to talk more about the strategic Bitcoin reserve and how Bitcoin is going to be used for our country's financial independence. And you mentioned earlier that, yes, Donald Trump Jr. is there. He spoke last night. He talked about his company, diversify, and how it's going to disrupt traditional finance. What does that mean? Well, what it means is that they're going to cut out a lot of the middlemen that are just making fees on regular transactions, just like all those fees that you see when you possibly go to buy a home. Then also coming up is Eric Trump. We think he's going to talk about Bitcoin being digital property and relating that to real estate and how the blockchain can help improve efficiencies there. And there could be a lot of innovation and growth.
Any other speakers that you might be looking forward to? I mean, as we mentioned, there's a lot of high profile people that are going to be there and take the stage. A lot of people, of course, paying attention to what JD Vance has to say.
Yep. And so, of the speakers there, I'm interested to hear more about companies that are going to be talking about putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet, making it also a reserve asset for their own company to hedge against dollars that are deflating and to really diversify them as a company. So yeah, I'm paying attention to any companies that are going to be talking about that, because that is the current big growth sector and where a lot of the buyers are coming from for the space.
Going back to what we were talking about earlier here, the big question we get a lot from viewers is crypto a safe investment for your average American, the average person who is watching right now?
Yep. We get asked this question a lot by people who are becoming a new client of ours for crypto wealth management. Generally, when we hear them ask, is this safe? What they are referring to is the volatility of Bitcoin. Now, volatility is not necessarily a bad thing. It also is a measure of how high Bitcoin's price can go, right? Trading around 109, 110,000 per unit of Bitcoin today. But there are times when it does sell off some, okay? And it's that period where it makes them uneasy and maybe holds them back from investing. So what we do is we help educate them on Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. We make an investment plan. We help manage the portfolios for them. We act as a fiduciary, looking out for their best interests. This makes them feel comfortable in understanding that it is a safe investment. And look, Bitcoin, once they start to hold it, they realize it is an excellent inflation hedge, okay? And it's something also not only as a diversifier for performance in their portfolio, but also against, if there's a problem like 2008 where the banks are not open and you can't get money out of, an ATM, then you have Bitcoin. You are self-banking. So it's a really great diversification tool.
And you are taking a look at the post here from the Bitcoin conference. This posted on X, as they say, Vice President JD Vance, keynote confirmed May 28th. That's today at 9 a.m. Pacific time. We know that is 12 p.m. Eastern time. He will be there, so we're going to bring you those comments in full. Now, Bryan, before I let you go here, what is maybe one misconception or narrative that you think the community needs to move past when it does come to crypto and Bitcoin?
Yep. When we hear misconception around Bitcoin and crypto, it actually generally tends to come from people who are not invested yet. And then in their subconscious thinking, they maybe are too late. And that's just not the case. This is a really new space. If you hear the headlines, you hear companies are buying Bitcoin now, and they're going to be buying for their balance sheet in the continuing future. And what does that mean? They anticipate that the price is going to be higher in the future. I mean, we have a Bitcoin strategic reserve coming. This is amazing. It is not too late. If you look at Bitcoin over the past 7 years, its annualized return has basically shown that your value in Bitcoin has basically doubled every 2 years. Now, will this continue forever in the future? Likely not, but even if it comes down to maybe a 30% annualized return in the medium term, it's still a really great investment compared to traditional stocks in the S&P 500.
All right, Bryan, a lot of great information there. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Anything you want to add about any of this before I let you go?
Yeah, it's just really important to understand that our country is going to have Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset. Okay, this is very monumental. And, if you're worried about Bitcoin being safe, you got to understand, again, if it's for our country and good enough, it's good enough for everybody. And there is an investment case for every American for some percentage to have some Bitcoin in their portfolio.
All right. Thank you again for taking the time to join us here and help break it all down. We appreciate it.